The morning sun cast long shadows across the red rocks of New Colorado as Jake Martinez finished his third cup of coffee. He sat at his workstation in the communications center, checking the daily reports from the mining stations scattered across the planet. At 28, Jake had been working as a communications technician for the Colonial Defense Network for 6 years. His job was simple but important: keep all the communication systems running smoothly so the miners could talk to each other and to the ships that came to collect the precious metals they dug from the ground. His younger brother, Danny, walked into the room carrying a toolbox and wearing his usual smile. Danny was 24 and worked as a sound engineer for the colony. While Jake made sure people could talk to each other, Danny made sure they could enjoy music and entertainment after their long work shifts. The brothers had always been close, but working on the same planet made them even closer. "Morning, Jake," Danny said, setting his toolbox down near the entertainment system controls. "The miners in Sector 7 are complaining about static in their music feed again. I think it's just a loose connection, but I want to check it out." Jake nodded without looking up from his screens. "Sounds good. Everything else looks normal today. The ore ships are due to arrive next week, so we need to make sure all systems are working perfectly." New Colorado was a peaceful place. The colony had been established 30 years ago when humans first discovered the rich mineral deposits beneath the planet's surface. Now it was home to about 50,000 people who lived in small towns connected by underground tunnels. The work was hard, but the pay was good, and most people were happy to call this red planet their home. Danny started working on the entertainment system, humming a tune as he checked the cables. He had always loved music. Even as a child on Earth, he could play almost any instrument he touched. His perfect pitch and natural understanding of sound made him the perfect person to maintain the colony's audio systems. Jake often joked that Danny could probably fix a broken radio just by listening to it. The communication center was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery and Danny's humming. Jake liked the peaceful mornings. They gave him time to think and plan for the day ahead. He was reviewing the supply reports when an alarm suddenly started beeping on his console. "What's that?" Danny asked, looking up from his work. Jake frowned at his screen. "Long-range sensors are picking up something. Looks like ships coming out of hyperspace." "The ore ships aren't due for another week," Danny said, walking over to look at Jake's screen. Jake's frown deepened as he studied the readings. "These aren't ore ships. The signatures are all wrong. I've never seen anything like this before." The alarm kept beeping as more ships appeared on the sensors. Jake counted them quickly. There were at least 20 vessels, all much larger than normal cargo ships. They moved in perfect formation, like a military fleet preparing for battle. "Jake, you need to see this," Danny said, pointing to another screen that showed visual images from the long-range cameras. Jake looked at the screen and felt his blood run cold. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever built. They looked like giant crystals floating in space, their surfaces shimmering with strange colors that seemed to shift and change as they moved. Each ship was perfectly smooth, with no visible engines or weapons, yet they moved with purpose and precision. "Are those alien ships?" Danny asked quietly. Before Jake could answer, his communication console exploded with incoming messages. Reports were flooding in from all over the planet. The mining stations had seen the ships. The defense posts were going to high alert. Commander Lisa Hayes, the colony's military leader, was calling for an emergency meeting. Jake quickly patched into the colony's main communication channel. Commander Hayes' voice filled the room, calm but urgent. "All personnel, this is Commander Hayes. We have confirmed the presence of unknown vessels in our space. These ships do not match any known human or allied designs. All civilian personnel are to report to designated shelters immediately. Military personnel report to your stations." This is not a drill. Jake and Danny looked at each other. They had trained for emergencies, but no one had ever really expected to face an alien invasion. The colony's defenses were designed to protect against pirates or raiders, not against unknown technology from another world. Suddenly, the screens showing the alien ships began to flicker. Jake watched in horror as thousands of small objects began pouring out of the larger vessels. They moved like a swarm of angry insects, spreading out in all directions toward the planet. "Those are drones," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're sending drones." The first attacks came without warning. The communication center shook as explosions rocked the planet's surface. Through the windows, Jake and Danny could see bright flashes of light as the alien drones struck their targets. The mining stations went silent one by one as the drones systematically destroyed everything they found. Danny grabbed Jake's arm. "We need to get to the shelters." But Jake was staring at his screens, watching the colony's defenses crumble. The human fighters that rose to meet the alien drones were swept aside like leaves in a hurricane. The drones moved with impossible precision, dodging human weapons and striking back with devastating accuracy. "The defense grid is down," Jake said, his fingers flying over his controls as he tried to restore communication with the military posts. "They're hitting our communication towers, our power plants, everything." Another explosion, much closer this time, shook the building. Danny pulled Jake away from his console just as the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing the room in red light. "We have to go," Danny said urgently, but as they moved toward the door, Jake heard something that made him stop. Through the chaos of alarms and explosions, he could hear a sound coming from his damaged equipment. It was faint, but it was there, a low, musical humming that seemed to rise and fall in a regular pattern. "Danny, do you hear that?" Danny stopped and listened. His musical ear picked up the sound immediately. "It's like a song," he said, his voice filled with wonder despite their desperate situation. The humming grew louder as more drones passed overhead. Jake realized the sound was coming from the aliens themselves. As the drones flew past, they created a harmony that was both beautiful and terrifying. "They're singing," Danny whispered. Before Jake could respond, the building shook again. This time, part of the ceiling fell down, blocking their path to the exit. They were trapped in the communication center as the alien invasion continued around them. Through the broken windows, they could see the drones working with mechanical precision. They moved in perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly what the others were doing. It was like watching a deadly dance performed by machines that had never known doubt or fear. Jake tried his radio again, hoping to contact Commander Hayes or any other survivors. Static filled the airwaves, but underneath it, he could still hear that strange humming. The alien drones were still singing their mysterious song as they destroyed everything humans had built on New Colorado. Danny sat down heavily in a chair, his face pale. "Jake, what if this is it? What if we can't stop them?" Jake looked at his brother, then at the chaos outside, then at the damaged equipment still picking up the aliens' strange music. An idea began to form in his mind, crazy and impossible, but maybe their only hope. "Danny," he said slowly, "you said they're singing. What if that's not just noise? What if it means something?" Danny looked up at his brother, hope flickering in his eyes. Maybe, just maybe, they had found something that could help them fight back against an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat outside. The alien drones continued their deadly work, their haunting song echoing across the dying colony. Jake and Danny sat in the red emergency lighting of the communication center, listening to the strange humming that filled the air. Outside, explosions continued to rock the colony as the alien drones destroyed everything in their path. The brothers had been trapped for 3 hours now, with no way to reach the evacuation shelters. Danny pressed his ear against the wall, trying to hear the alien sounds more clearly. His years of working with music had trained him to notice things that others might miss. The humming wasn't random noise. It had a pattern, like a song with verses and choruses. "Jake, listen to this," Danny said, moving to the damaged communication equipment. "The sound gets higher when the drones are flying fast and lower when they slow down. It's like they're talking to each other." Jake joined his brother at the console. Even with the emergency power, most of their equipment was still working. He adjusted the frequency settings, trying to get a clearer signal of the alien sounds. You're right, Jake said, watching the wave patterns on his screen. Look at these readings. The drones are sending signals to each other, but they're not using radio waves like we do. They're using sound waves? Danny nodded excitedly, and not just any sound waves. These are musical notes. See how they go up and down in a pattern? It's like they're singing instructions to each other. The building shook again as another group of drones passed overhead. This time, both brothers listened carefully to the humming. Danny grabbed a piece of paper and started writing down the notes he heard. There, he said, showing Jake his notes. That group of drones was singing in what we would call a minor key. But when they changed direction, they switched to a major key. It's like different songs mean different things. Jake stared at his brother's notes. You mean they're using music as a language? Exactly, Danny said, his eyes bright with excitement despite their dangerous situation. Think about it, Jake. Music is mathematical. Every note has a specific frequency. If you know the frequencies, you can predict what comes next in a song. Maybe that's how they coordinate their attacks so perfectly. Jake turned back to his equipment, his mind racing. If Danny was right, then the aliens weren't just using music to communicate. They were using it to control their entire army. Every drone knew what every other drone was doing because they were all following the same musical score. Can you record these sounds? Jake asked. Dottie nodded and connected his portable music equipment to Jake's communication system. He had brought his gear to fix the entertainment system, but now it might help them save the colony. Danny's synthesizer could record and play back musical patterns with perfect accuracy for the next hour. The brothers worked together to capture the alien music. Danny used his trained ear to identify individual notes and patterns, while Jake used his technical skills to record and analyze the signals. They discovered that the aliens used 7 different tones but combined them in ways that human music never did. This is incredible, Danny said, playing back one of their recordings. They're not just playing one melody. They're playing multiple melodies at the same time, in different dimensions of sound. It's like they can hear music that we can't even imagine. Jake frowned at his screen. But if we can record it, maybe we can understand it. Look at these patterns. Every time the drones attack a power station, they sing this sequence. And when they attack communication towers, they sing this other sequence. Danny studied the patterns his brother had identified. You're right, it's like they have different songs for different jobs. The scout drones sing fast, high notes. The big attack drones sing slow, deep notes. And the repair drones sing something in between. Suddenly, Danny stood up with a look of excitement on his face. Jake, what if we could sing back to them? What do you mean? Think about it. If they're using music to control their drones, maybe we could use music to confuse them. Or even better, maybe we could use their own music against them? Jake looked at his brother like he had gone crazy. Danny, we're not aliens. We don't know their language. But we know music, Danny said, and music follows rules. If we can figure out their rules, maybe we can learn to speak their language. Before Jake could respond, they heard a new sound from outside. It was different from the humming they had been hearing. This was a single, clear tone that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Both brothers froze as they recognized what it meant. That's a command signal, Jake whispered. Something just told all the drones to do something new. Through the broken windows, they could see the drones changing their behavior. Instead of attacking randomly, they began to move in organized groups toward specific targets. The alien music had become more complex, with multiple layers of sound weaving together in a pattern that was both beautiful and terrifying. Danny quickly adjusted his equipment to record the new signals. This is it, Jake. This is their command language. If we can decode this, we might be able to understand their whole system. Jake watched the wave patterns on his screen. The command signal was unlike anything they had recorded before. It was more complex, with frequencies that seemed to shift and change as he watched. The signal is adapting, Jake said with growing excitement. Look at this. Every time a drone reports back, the command signal changes slightly. It's like the aliens are rewriting their music in real time, Danny nodded. That's how they stay coordinated. The song tells them what to do, but it also changes based on what they learn. It's like a jazz band where everyone is improvising, but they're all following the same basic melody. The brothers worked frantically to record and analyze the new signals. They discovered that the alien music was far more sophisticated than they had first thought. Each drone wasn't just following orders, it was part of a vast musical composition that included every alien ship and every drone in the fleet. This is like a symphony, Danny said in amazement. But instead of violins and drums, they're using spaceships and weapons. Every drone is playing its part in a bigger song. Jake was studying the technical aspects of the signals when he noticed something interesting. Danny, look at this. The drones are using the same frequency ranges that we use for our communication systems. That's why our equipment can pick up their signals so clearly. Danny's eyes widened. That means our equipment can also send signals on those frequencies. Exactly. If we can figure out how to speak their musical language, we might be able to send them our own commands. The brothers looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. It was a crazy idea, but it might be their only chance to fight back against the alien invasion. Danny started working on his synthesizer, trying to recreate some of the simpler alien melodies they had recorded. His first attempt sounded nothing like the originals, but gradually he began to understand the mathematical relationships between the notes. I think I'm getting it, Danny said, playing a sequence that sounded almost like the alien scout drone. Signals. Their music is based on mathematical ratios just like ours, but they use ratios that we never thought of. Jake connected Danny's synthesizer to the communication system's transmission equipment. If this works, we might be able to send a signal to the drones outside. Danny took a deep breath and played his recreation of the alien scout signal. Both brothers watched the screens nervously, waiting to see if anything would happen. At first, nothing changed. The drones continued their attacks as if they hadn't heard anything. But then one small drone near their building suddenly stopped moving. It hovered in the air for a moment as if confused. It worked, Jake shouted. The drone heard our signal. Danny grinned and played the signal again. This time, two drones stopped what they were doing and began to circle around each other as if they were receiving conflicting orders. We did it, Jake. We actually spoke to them in their own language. Jake was already planning their next move. This is just the beginning, Danny. If we can confuse a few drones, maybe we can confuse all of them. We need to learn more of their language, and we need to learn it fast. Outside, the alien drones continued their deadly work, but now the Martinez brothers had hope. They had discovered that the aliens' greatest strength, their perfect coordination, through music, might also be their greatest weakness. If two humans trapped in a communication center could learn to speak the alien language, then maybe humanity had a chance to win this war after all. The success with the confused drones gave Jake and Danny new hope, but they knew they'd help to turn their discovery into a real weapon. They had been trapped in the communication center for 6 hours when they heard footsteps in the corridor. Outside, hello? Is anyone in there? A woman's voice called out. Jake carefully moved some of the debris blocking the door. We're here, we're alive. Captain Amy Rodriguez squeezed through the gap in the doorway. She was the colony's chief science officer, a smart woman in her 30s who had been studying the planet's geology when the invasion began. Her uniform was torn and dirty, and she had a small cut on her forehead, but her eyes were sharp and alert. Thank goodness you're safe, she said, looking around the damaged room. I've been trying to reach any survivors with working communication equipment. Most of the colony's defenses are down, but Commander Hayes is still alive. She's organizing the remaining military personnel in the underground bunkers. Captain Rodriguez, Jake said urgently, we've made a discovery about the aliens. They're using music to control their drones. Amy looked at him with surprise. Music? What do you mean? Danny quickly explained what they had learned about the alien communication system. He played some of their recordings and showed her the wave patterns on Jake's screens. Amy listened carefully, her scientific mind immediately grasping the importance of what the brothers had discovered. "This is incredible," she said, studying the data. "You're saying they coordinate their entire fleet through harmonic frequencies?" "Exactly," Jake replied. "And we managed to confuse some of their drones by playing back their own signals. But we need to understand their system better if we want to do more than just confuse a few drones." Amy nodded thoughtfully. "In my geology work, I've studied how sound waves move through different materials. The mathematical principles are similar to what you're describing. If we can decode their musical language, we might be able to disrupt their entire command structure." The three of them worked together through the night, combining their different skills to understand the alien system. Amy provided the scientific knowledge about wave mechanics and signal processing. Jake handled the technical aspects of recording and transmitting the signals. Danny used his musical training to identify patterns and relationships in the alien melodies. They discovered that the alien drones use 7 basic tones, but they combined these tones in ways that created complex three-dimensional sound patterns. Each drone type responded to different combinations of these tones, like different instruments in an orchestra. "Look at this," Amy said, pointing to one of their recordings. "The scout drones respond to high-frequency signals with quick staccato patterns, but the heavy attack drones respond to low-frequency signals with slow, sustained notes." Danny nodded. "It's like they have different musical personalities. The scouts are like violins, fast and agile. The attack drones are like bass drums, slow and powerful." Jake had been working on improving their transmission equipment. "I've figured out how to boost our signal strength. We should be able to reach drones across the entire colony now, not just the ones right outside." They decided to test their improved system on a group of repair drones that were fixing some damaged alien equipment near the communication center. Danny had identified the musical pattern that the repair drones used to coordinate their work. "Okay," Danny said, his fingers hovering over his synthesizer. "I'm going to play their repair signal, but I'm going to change one note. Instead of telling them to fix things, it should tell them to take things apart." He played the modified signal, and all 3 humans watched through the windows. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the repair drones began to dismantle the equipment they had just finished fixing. "It worked," Amy exclaimed. "They're following your modified command." But their celebration was short-lived. Within minutes, the alien system adapted to their interference. New signals came from somewhere in the alien fleet, and the repair drones stopped what they were doing and flew away. "They're learning," Jake said grimly. "They figured out that someone was sending fake commands, so they changed their frequency patterns." Danny frowned as he listened to the new alien signals. "The music is more complex now. They've added extra layers to make it harder to copy." Amy studied the new patterns on Jake's screens. "This is like an arms race. Every time we figure out how to disrupt their system, they adapt and make it more difficult." "But we're learning too," Jake pointed out. "Every time they adapt, we learn more about how their system works." Over the next few hours, the 3 humans played a dangerous game with the alien fleet. They would send false commands to groups of drones, causing them to malfunction or attack each other. The aliens would then change their command frequencies to prevent further interference. But each change gave the humans more information about the alien system. Danny made a crucial discovery when he noticed that the alien adaptations followed musical rules. "They're not just changing random frequencies," he said excitedly. "They're transposing their music to different keys like a human musician would do." "What does that mean?" Amy asked. "It means their system is based on mathematical relationships, just like human music. If I can figure out the mathematical formula they're using, I might be able to predict their adaptations." Jake looked at his brother with admiration. "You mean you could stay one step ahead of them?" "Maybe, but I need to understand their system better first." The breakthrough came when Amy realized that the alien drones were not just receiving commands, they were also sending information back to their fleet. "Look at these signal patterns," she said. "The drones are reporting on their status, their location, everything they're doing. It's like they're singing a continuous song about what they see and do. Danny listened to the reporting signals and began to understand their structure. These are like status reports set to music. Each drone is telling the fleet what it's doing, but it's doing it in song form. And if we can interrupt those status reports, Jake said, we might be able to make the aliens think their drones are doing something different than what they're actually doing. They spent the rest of the night developing what Danny called musical viruses, false signals that would spread through the alien network, causing confusion and chaos. The first virus was simple, a signal that made drones report false locations, causing them to fly into each other. "This is working," Amy said as they watched several drones collide outside their window. "But we need something bigger. Something that will affect their entire fleet, not just individual drones." Danny had been studying the most complex signals they had recorded, the command frequencies that controlled multiple drone types at once. "I think I know what we need to do," he said. "We need to find their main command frequency, the one that controls everything." "Is that possible?" Jake asked. "Maybe. Every orchestra has a conductor, right? Someone who keeps everyone playing the same song at the same time. The aliens must have something similar, a master frequency that all the other frequencies follow." Amy nodded. "That makes sense. In any complex system, there has to be a central control mechanism." They began searching through their recordings, looking for patterns that appeared in multiple signal types. It was slow work, but gradually they began to identify frequencies that seemed to influence all the others. "There," Danny said, pointing to a wave pattern on Jake's screen. "That frequency appears in every command signal we've recorded. It's like the bass note that all the other music is built on." Jake studied the pattern carefully. "You're right. This frequency is constant even when everything else changes. It's like the heartbeat of their entire system." Amy looked at both brothers. "So if we could disrupt that base frequency, we could disrupt their entire fleet," Danny finished. "But it would have to be something really powerful. Something that would overwhelm their ability to adapt." Jake was already working on the technical challenge. "I can boost our transmission power, but we'll need a signal that's complex enough to confuse their entire system." Danny smiled. "I think I know exactly what we need. We need to introduce them to something they've never heard before: human creativity." The three humans looked at each other, realizing they had found the key to fighting back against the alien invasion. It wouldn't be easy, but for the first time since the attack began, they had a real plan to win. The plan was ambitious and dangerous. Jake, Danny, and Captain Rodriguez needed to gather every musician in the colony and turn them into a weapon against the alien fleet. But first, they had to reach the other survivors without being detected by the alien drones. "The underground tunnels," Amy said, studying a map of the colony. "The miners use them to move between different work sites. If we can reach the main tunnel system, we can get to the evacuation shelters without going outside." Jake packed their recording equipment and transmission gear while Danny carefully stored his synthesizer and the musical notes he had written down. They had spent hours analyzing the alien frequencies, and Danny's notebook now contained what might be the key to saving the colony. The three humans crawled through a maintenance shaft that connected the communication center to the tunnel system. The shaft was narrow and dark, but it was safer than trying to walk through the streets where alien drones were still patrolling. After 20 minutes of crawling, they reached the main tunnel. The underground passages were filled with frightened colonists who had been hiding for almost a day. Children cried softly while adults whispered about the destruction happening above their heads. Commander Hayes found them as soon as they emerged from the maintenance shaft. She was a tall woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Her uniform was dirty and torn, but she still carried herself with the confidence of someone used to being in charge. "Rodriguez, Martinez brothers," she said, relief clear in her voice. "Thank God you're alive. We've lost contact with most of our defensive positions. The aliens have destroyed nearly everything above ground." "Commander," Amy said urgently, "we've discovered something important about the aliens. They use music to control their drones. We think we can use that knowledge to fight back." Hayes looked skeptical. Music? What are you talking about? Danny quickly explained their discovery while Jake set up some of their equipment to demonstrate. When Danny played one of their recordings of alien signals, several people in the tunnel stopped talking and listened with amazement. You're saying they communicate through songs? Hayes asked. Not just communicate, Jake replied. They control their entire fleet through musical frequencies. Every drone, every ship, they're all following the same musical score. Hayes studied the wave patterns on Jake's portable screen. As a military leader, she understood the importance of communication and coordination in battle. If the aliens were using music for these purposes, then disrupting their music could win the war. What do you need from me? She asked. We need every musician in the colony, Danny said. Every person who can play an instrument, sing, or understand music. We're going to create a musical weapon that will confuse their entire system. Hayes nodded and turned to her officers. Find every musician among the survivors. Bring them here. Immediately. Within an hour, they had gathered 37 people with musical skills. There was Helen Burke, a classical violinist who had played with orchestras on Earth. Carlos Washington was a jazz pianist who performed in the colony's entertainment districts. Steve Johnson played guitar in a rock band. There were also amateur musicians, people who sang in the colony's choir, played instruments as a hobby, or had learned music as children. Danny stood in front of the group, his notebook in his hands. I know this sounds crazy, but we need to use music to fight the aliens. They control their drones through harmonic frequencies, and we can disrupt those frequencies with our own music. He explained what they had learned about the alien system, how different types of drones responded to different musical patterns. The musicians listened with growing excitement as they realized their skills could be turned into weapons. The Scout. Drones respond to high, fast music, Danny continued. Helen, your violin would be perfect for disrupting their reconnaissance flights. Carlos, the heavy attack drones use low, slow frequencies. Your piano skills could confuse their bombing runs. Helen raised her hand. But how do we know what music to play? We don't know their language. Danny smiled. That's where human creativity comes in. Their system is mathematically perfect, but it's also rigid. They can't handle improvisation or unexpected changes. If we play music that follows their basic patterns but adds human emotion and creativity, we can overload their system. Jake had been working on a way to amplify their musical signals. I've connected our communication equipment to the colony's emergency broadcast system. We can transmit music from here to speakers throughout the colony. Every entertainment system, every public address speaker, even the mining equipment can be turned into a musical instrument. Amy added, we've also discovered that the alien drones report their status back to their fleet through musical signals. If we can interfere with those reports, we can make the aliens think their drones are doing things they're not actually doing. The musicians began to understand the scope of their mission. They weren't just going to play music, they were going to conduct a war through sound. Steve Johnson, the rock guitarist, spoke up. I've been listening to some of your recordings. The heavy attack drones use frequencies that are similar to power chords. If I play loud enough, I might be able to completely overload their systems. That's exactly right, Danny said. But we need to coordinate our attacks? If we all play at the same time without a plan, we'll just create noise. We need to work together like a real orchestra. They spent the next few hours practicing. Danny taught each musician the basic alien frequency patterns, then showed them how to modify those patterns with human musical techniques. Helen learned to add vibrato and emotional expression to the rigid alien scout signals. Carlos discovered that jazz improvisation could create chaos in the alien attack drone frequencies. Jake worked on the technical side, creating a system that could broadcast multiple musical signals simultaneously. Each musician would have their own frequency channel, but all the signals would be transmitted together to create a complex musical weapon. This is incredible, Amy said, watching the musicians work. You're creating a symphony of warfare. But as they prepared for their musical attack, the aliens were not sitting idle. The drone patrols had become more aggressive. and new types of drones began appearing, larger, more heavily armed units that seemed designed to hunt down the remaining human survivors. "They're adapting again," Jake observed, watching the alien movements on his screens. "They know we're still alive down here, and they're trying to find us." Danny listened to the new alien signals with growing concern. "The music is getting more complex. They're adding layers and frequencies that I've never heard before. It's like they're composing new songs specifically to counter our interference." Hayes checked her watch. "We're running out of time. The main alien fleet is moving closer to the planet. If we're going to do this, we need to do it now." The musicians took their positions around the tunnel, each one connected to Jake's transmission system. Danny stood at the center, his notebook open to the page where he had written the alien command frequencies. "Remember," he said to the group, "we're not just trying to disrupt their drones. We're trying to overwhelm their entire system with something they can't understand: human creativity and emotion." Helen raised her violin. "What if this doesn't work?" Danny looked around at the faces of his fellow colonists, scared, determined, and ready to fight for their home. "Then at least we'll go down fighting with music instead of guns." Jake made the final adjustments to their transmission equipment. "All systems are ready. We can broadcast to the entire colony and beyond. The aliens won't be able to ignore this signal." Amy stood next to the communications console, ready to coordinate their attack with any surviving military units. "The moment we start broadcasting, every alien drone on the planet will know exactly where we are. We'll have one chance to make this work." Danny raised his hand, and 37 musicians prepared to play the most important concert of their lives. Outside, the alien drones continued their deadly patrol, unaware that the humans were about to turn music into a weapon that could change the course of the war. "For New Colorado," Danny said, and brought his hand down to begin the symphony of liberation. The moment Danny brought his hand down, the underground tunnel filled with music unlike anything the colony had ever heard. 37 human musicians began playing their parts in a symphony designed to confuse and destroy an alien fleet. Helen Burke started with her violin, playing a haunting melody that was based on the alien scout drone frequencies but filled with human emotion. The notes soared and dipped with feeling that no alien system could understand. Through Jake's amplification system, her music reached every speaker in the colony and beyond. Carlos Washington joined in with his piano, adding deep bass notes that targeted the heavy attack drones. But instead of playing the rigid mathematical patterns that the aliens expected, he improvised with jazz techniques that created unexpected harmonies and rhythms. Steve Johnson's electric guitar came next, sending power chords through the alien communication networks with a force that made the speakers crackle. His rock music was loud, aggressive, and completely unpredictable. Jake watched his screens as the alien responses began immediately. The first signs of confusion appeared among the scout drones flying over the colony. Their perfect formation began to break apart as Helen's violin created chaos in their coordination signals. "It's working!" Amy shouted over the music. "Look at the movement patterns." The drones don't know where to go, but Danny was focused on something bigger. He had his synthesizer connected to the main transmission system, and he was preparing to play the most important part of their musical weapon. He had identified the master frequency that controlled the alien fleet, and now he was going to attack it with pure human creativity. The alien fleet responded quickly to the human musical attack. New signals flooded their communication channels as the aliens tried to adapt to the unexpected interference. But for every adjustment they made, the human musicians created something new and unpredictable. The colony's children joined the battle in an unexpected way. Those who were old enough to understand what was happening began to sing along with the music. Their young voices added another layer of humanity to the symphony, creating sounds that the alien mathematics could never have predicted. Commander Hayes watched the battle through Jake's equipment, coordinating with the few remaining military units. "The alien ground forces are in complete disarray," she reported. "Their drones are attacking each other, flying in circles, or just shutting down completely." But the real test came when the main alien fleet in orbit began to respond. The massive, crystalline ships started broadcasting new command frequencies, trying to regain control of their drone armies. The alien music became more complex and powerful, threatening to overwhelm the human signals. "They're fighting back," Jake warned. "The main fleet is trying to override our music with stronger signals." Danny nodded and stepped forward to his synthesizer. "This is it, time for the final movement." He began to play a melody that started simple but grew more complex with each note. It was based on the alien master frequency, but Danny added something the aliens had never experienced: pure human emotion. The melody told the story of the colony, of families who had built new lives on a distant planet, of children playing in red rock gardens, of people who refused to give up hope even when facing impossible odds. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien fleet's attempts to regain control faltered as Danny's emotional melody spread through their networks. Their mathematical perfection could not process the feelings contained in the music. Other musicians began to join Danny's melody, each adding their own interpretation of what it meant to be human. Helen's violin sang of beauty and loss. Carlos's piano spoke of resilience and strength. Steve's guitar roared with defiance and courage. Jake boosted the signal strength to maximum power, sending the human symphony across space to reach every alien ship in the fleet. The music was so powerful that it overloaded several of the colony's speakers, but the message was already spreading through the alien networks like a virus. "The main fleet is responding," Amy announced, her voice filled with amazement. "But not the way we expected." On Jake's screens, they could see the alien ships beginning to move in new patterns. Instead of the rigid formations they had maintained since arriving, the ships began to flow and dance in response to the human music. It was as if they were learning to feel emotion for the first time. The drones on the planet's surface stopped their attacks completely. Many of them began to hover in place, their own humming sounds changing to match the human melody. Some drones even began to create new sounds, adding their voices to the symphony in ways that surprised even Danny. "They're not just hearing our music," Danny said with wonder. "They're learning from it, they're discovering emotion." The battle reached its climax when Danny played the final phrase of his melody, a simple, beautiful sequence that somehow captured the essence of human hope. The notes rose and fell with perfect imperfection, mathematical yet emotional. Structured yet free, the response from the alien fleet was immediate and overwhelming. Every ship, every drone, every piece of alien technology began to broadcast the same message, a musical pattern that could only be interpreted as surrender, but it was more than surrender. As the alien signals continued, the humans realized that the aliens were trying to communicate with them using the musical language they had just learned. The rigid mathematical patterns were gone, replaced by something new, alien music filled with the emotion they had learned from human creativity. "They're talking to us," Danny whispered. "They're actually talking to us." Amy worked quickly to record and analyze the new alien signals. "The message is complex, but I think I understand the basic meaning. They're saying they want to stop fighting. They want to learn more about our music." Commander Hayes contacted the few remaining military units to stand down. The war was over, but not in the way anyone had expected. Instead of defeating the aliens through force, the humans had taught them something new about existence itself. Jake looked at his brother with pride and amazement. "Danny, you did it. You didn't just save the colony. You created the first real communication between humans and aliens." In the days that followed, the alien fleet remained in orbit around New Colorado, but their purpose had completely changed. Instead of conquest, they had come to learn. The drones that had once destroyed human settlements now helped to rebuild them, working alongside human engineers and learning human construction techniques. The most amazing discovery came when the aliens began to create their own music. Using the emotional principles they had learned from the human symphony, they composed new songs that were neither fully alien nor fully human, but something entirely new. Danny found himself working as the colony's first musical ambassador, teaching alien musicians about human creativity while learning about their mathematical approach to sound. The rigid perfection of alien technology combined with human emotion and improvisation created music that was more beautiful than either species could have created alone. Helen Burke started the galaxy's first human-alien orchestra with violin and alien harmonic crystals playing together in perfect harmony. Carlos Washington opened a music school where human children learned alongside young aliens who had never experienced emotion before meeting humans. Even Steve Johnson found his place in the new world, discovering that alien technology could amplify his rock music to levels that reached across entire star systems. Jake continued his work with communication systems, but now he was helping to establish a network that connected human colonies with alien worlds across the galaxy. The musical language that had begun as a weapon had become the foundation for a new age of cooperation and understanding. The Martinez brothers had started the day as simple technicians working on a mining colony. They ended it as the architects of first contact between humanity and an alien civilization. Their discovery that music could serve as a universal language had not only saved New Colorado, but had opened the door to a future where humans and aliens could work together to create something greater than either could achieve alone. The invasion was over, but the real adventure was just beginning.